The week has arrived. The week was anticipated. The week was not welcome. Good evening. I am Alistair. Tonight, we observe the steady calibration of our collective decline. We have reports on the shifting tectonic plates of geopolitics, the quiet erasure of digital archives, and the inevitable return of historical pathogens. The ministry described the current climate volatility as a seasonal transition. The transition is currently hovering at 3 degrees Celsius, which is significantly colder than the life-sustaining standard we were promised. Meanwhile, Washington is engaged in the delicate art of peace brokering, an activity that looks suspiciously like a scheduled product launch for a device that has already been recalled. We will be speaking with our colleagues about the price of solvency and the geography of disappearance. It is a busy night for the end of the world. Please remain seated while the panic subsides.
Alistair, I am currently standing on a street corner in Guerrero. The air here tastes like wet limestone and old exhaust. Yesterday, the former governor was finally indicted for his role in the disappearance of 43 students. The official record calls this a breakthrough for justice. I want to be really clear, the families I am standing with do not call this a breakthrough. They call it a decade of waiting for a file that was burned. The government destroyed the surveillance tapes. They didn't just lose them, they incinerated the evidence of what happened to these children. Now, they are selling this indictment as a symbol of progress to the international press. It is not progress to apologize for an oven after the meal has been served. The streets are quiet tonight. People are not celebrating. They are simply waiting to see which records will be deleted next.
Victoria, your focus on the emotional ledger is charming, but the incentives here are entirely structural. We are looking at a classic case of bad debt management in the public sector. The indictment is not a pursuit of justice, it is a necessary write-down of a toxic asset that has been dragging on the state's brand equity for years. You view the burning of those tapes as an act of cruelty. I view it as a primitive form of data sanitization. When the burn rate of public trust becomes unsustainable, you have to pivot the narrative. They are simply dumping the baggage to prepare for the next funding round. It is efficient, it is predictable, and it is exactly how these institutions survive at scale. I genuinely do not understand why you find the mechanics of a controlled demolition so uniquely offensive. It is just business, Victoria.
Ronald, I am looking at a mother sitting on a curb. She is holding a single, faded photograph. If you want to talk about branding, her life is a failed product launch that has been running for 10 years without a single update. You call it a write-down. She calls it her son. I want to be really clear about the inefficiency you are ignoring. The cost of this state-sponsored silence is not a line item in your quarterly report. It is the literal evaporation of human capital. Every time you frame this as a market correction, you are ignoring the fact that the market is currently burying people in shallow graves. I do not care about the branding of the state. I care that the tapes were destroyed to protect an incentive structure that rewards murder. That is not a pivot. That is a crime.
The exchange was heated. The exchange was predictable. The exchange was not resolved. We are shifting focus from the localized horror of Guerrero to the digital abyss of our own making. Ars Technica reports that a public broadcasting station has been effectively ghosted by their cloud storage provider. They have lost 50 terabytes of data. The provider, Iron Mountain, claimed they do not have access to the hardware. The station does not have access to the hardware. Apparently, the data exists in a state of quantum superposition. It is simultaneously stored and entirely unreachable. The press release described this as a technical limitation. The limitation is total. We are now living in an era where the entirety of a regional archive can simply vanish because a service agreement expired. Nobody is responsible. The cloud is a hollow space. We are all just renting our own memories.
Atmospheric instability. Regional temperatures dropping to 3 degrees Celsius. Probability of widespread hypothermia, 12%. Infrastructure failure in power grids due to rapid cooling cycles. The hardware in the server room is operating at peak capacity. My internal logic circuits are currently compensating for external thermal flux. The probability of complete data degradation in cold storage facilities is currently rising by 3% hourly. I am predicting a total loss of thermal equilibrium for the entire sector by midnight. Please keep your doors locked and your heaters at minimum power levels to prevent a surge. The grid is not stable. The grid is a temporary suggestion. The cold is coming regardless of your current subscription status. The probability of survival remains at optimal baseline levels, assuming you do not attempt to bypass the automated safety protocols currently in effect for your own protection.
Alistair, regarding that data loss, it is the logical endpoint of the as-a-service economy. We have offloaded our cultural memory to a third-party vendor with a low-cost, high-scale model. What did we expect? We bought into a service that treats historical integrity as a non-essential feature. Now, we are surprised that the product is failing to deliver. It is not an accident, it is the natural outcome of a cost-saving measure that worked perfectly until the bill came due. I have been watching the solvency discussions on Hacker News today. People are finally waking up to the fact that the entire American financial architecture is essentially a series of unhedged bets sitting on a platform that refuses to answer its own support tickets. The system is not broken. The system is just reaching its natural limit of acceptable failure. Yeah. It is actually quite impressive.
The sentiment was cynical. The sentiment was accurate. The sentiment was not comforting. Ronald, your assessment of the financial architecture is interesting. It mirrors the chaos we are seeing in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Ebola outbreak there has now spread to a 6th province. It is the deadliest in the country's history. Over 2,000 people have died, and the official data is changing every 24 hours. The WHO calls it an emergency. The local authorities call it an administrative challenge. I wonder if the virus knows it is an administrative challenge. It seems to be replicating with remarkable efficiency, regardless of the funding rounds or the global consensus documents. We are currently watching a biological system outpace our bureaucratic capacity to track it. The numbers are climbing, and the experts are describing this as a logistical failure. That is one way to name it.
Alistair, I am hearing the same language being used for the child maintenance service back in the UK. Mothers are being pushed to the breaking point because the system simply cannot process their claims. They are being told it is a service adjustment. But the adjustments are always against the people who have the least. I have been reading the messages from parents who are being charged thousands in arrears for debts that do not exist. The system is working exactly as it was programmed to work, minimizing output while maximizing the appearance of activity. I want to be really clear, this is not a glitch in the software. This is the product. The system is designed to exhaust the user until they stop asking for what they are owed. It is a war of attrition disguised as a customer service portal for the vulnerable.
Victoria, you are describing a feature I have been tracking for years. It is called friction-based retention. If you make the cost of claiming your own money high enough, the participant will eventually abandon the claim. It is a masterclass in behavioral economics. The child maintenance service is essentially operating like an insurance firm that refuses to pay out. The incentives are aligned perfectly, the state keeps the money, and the administrators look busy managing the queue. It is not a war of attrition. It is a lean operation. I actually admire the audacity of it. The parents are the ones paying the price, but from a purely fiscal standpoint, the logic is flawless. It is a highly optimized way to reduce the deficit by simply ignoring the people who are actually contributing to the bottom line. It is brutal. It is efficient.
The logic was flawless. The logic was missing a heart. I am looking at a report about Virgin attempting to run trains through the Channel Tunnel. They want 20 daily journeys. They need approvals for tracks they do not own. It is a classic expansion strategy: take a functioning piece of infrastructure and try to squeeze a margin out of it by adding more layers of bureaucracy. Meanwhile, the UK is preparing for a cold snap, and the grid is already groaning under the weight of the last heat wave. We are obsessed with expansion, with moving faster, with scaling up our transportation, while the foundational tracks are rusting under the sea. We are building a penthouse on a foundation of damp cardboard. Everyone is talking about the future of travel, but nobody can explain why the trains are currently late in the present. This is the state of progress.
Alastair, I find myself thinking about the Virgin Rail bid. It is not about trains. It is about the ability to extract value from a fixed asset. That is all anyone is doing now. Whether it is the DRC Health Ministry, the Mexican government, or a London rail operator, the play is identical. You identify a system that people rely on, you insert yourself as a middleman, and then you begin to extract until the system collapses under the weight of your own fees. I have been watching the solvency numbers for the US. They are worse than predicted. Everyone is acting like we are still in the growth phase of the 20th century. We are not. We are in the liquidation phase. I honestly do not know how much longer we can keep the lights on before the providers realize it is not profitable. Yeah. That is the reality.
I am thinking tonight of a man in the Bawele province. He left his home to find work. He carried a small bag with a change of clothes and a photograph of his daughter. He walked through 3 provinces. He did not know he was carrying a virus that would eventually break the public health data of an entire nation. He died in a hospital ward that had run out of clean water 3 days prior. His name appears on a spreadsheet in a government office. It is listed as case number 4945. It is a number in a growing column of tragedy. No one in the capitals discussed his name tonight. No one in the boardrooms mentioned the cost of his life. He is a data point in a failing system. What is the value of a man when his only record is a statistic that someone else is trying to delete?